What's going on, guys? Hey, we're back with a brand new Cappy Army video about China and Taiwan. I think this is potentially the one of the largest issues that the world is going to face in 2027. Personally, that's my thought, but I'm very interested to see what Mr. Cappy has going on here. Please, or says about it. Please go follow, share, like all of his stuff, man. He's the GOAT. So before we jump into it, I'm going to introduce myself, and then we will, because we have a bunch of new subscribers. So thank you everybody for being here and supporting the channel and liking and sharing and subscribing. At the end of the day, the main goal is to continue to bring awareness to what's happening here in Ukraine. And even though we're doing it on a small scale, I do believe we're making a difference. So thank you guys. So my name is Saxon. I go by Vegas here in Ukraine. I was a firefighter and an EMT in a small town outside Fort Worth, Texas, prior to coming to Ukraine. Once I got my EMT license and finished my clinicals for that, I came to Ukraine to volunteer in a hospital or something like that, maybe in some kind of CCP, casualty collection point, something like that, to use my medical skills and maybe some firefighting skills. Anyways, long story short, I ended up in an infantry unit in the International Legion. I trained with them for a couple months, deployed with them for a couple months, did a couple of combat operations with the International Legion, 1st Battalion, Charlie Company, 3rd Platoon. Shout out to Charlie. And then I left Ukraine, sold all my stuff in the U.S., got my cats, came back, helped start Azov's International Battalion, and deployed with those guys as combat medic in their assault team and did some combat operations with them. Now I'm here, still in Ukraine, helping and doing some things kind of behind the scenes, no longer fighting, but we do have some stuff in the works, so that I'll be able to share more in the future. That's it. If you are, we've got like 2 more days for our exclusive t-shirts that we have on the merch store. We've got the Flamingos Over Moscow t-shirt, which we will be taking out of the store at the end of the month. If you want one, grab one. It's a great time to get one because Moscow is literally burning as we speak, and it's beautiful to see. And then we've got our 4th of July, our July exclusive t-shirt for our Americans, which is American for Ukraine. And everybody who's already picked one up and sending me photos out to dinner with your wife or with your kids, man, wearing the shirt. You have no idea how cool that is to me, man. Thank you guys for that. And we've got our all of our uncensored gnarly footage and shit in the Discord, so check that out if you want. Let's go.
Chinese Coast Guard vessels patrol the outer of the declared military exercise zones, bringing them right up to the Taiwanese coastal waters. They're shadowed by Taiwan's own warships, and the mood is tense. China's already engaging in intense provocation, launching the largest air and naval exercises in the nation's history right on Taiwan's doorstep. This is how China's planning to turn their annual military drill into an invasion.
China has fired rockets toward Taiwan on its 2nd day of military drills around the island. Beijing says the drills are a warning to the self-governing territory, which it sees as a breakaway province.
The Chinese Coast Guard is there to ensure no civilian vessels stray too close to the ongoing military drills, but Taiwanese naval commanders are all too wise to the Chinese strategy of actual warships lurking just behind the peacetime Coast Guard fleet. You see, China's naval vessels are deployed across 3 major exercise boxes, one in the Strait itself, then one to the north, and finally a 3rd zone directly to the south of Taiwan. This has the effect of stretching Taiwan's limited ability to monitor overwhelming Chinese forces to the absolute breaking point. And that's the goal. The month-long buildup of Chinese
I want to mention this before we get too deep into it. He may mention it down the line, but if you don't know already, you'll be lost. So the entire idea, the reason that this is an issue and the reason China wants Taiwan primarily, besides reasons of conquest and expanding China, again, it's one of those situations where China believes Taiwan is rightly theirs because Taiwan was a Chinese province way back in the day. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong. But Taiwan produces like 90% of the most sophisticated microchips that are used in some of the most sophisticated hardware in the world. And then they make like 80% of the mid-tier microchip. And then 60% of the low tier. Anyways, they have basically they cornered the market of microchips, and every single thing in the world uses these microchips these days. And China knows this. The US knows this. The US knows China cannot be in possession of all of those resources and be able to corner that market themselves. China knows how much how much the United States relies on these microchips as well as the rest of the world. So China wants it, right? So this is kind of the biggest reason behind the threatening of China taking Taiwan. Even though they haven't mentioned anything about China hasn't mentioned anything about the microchips.
PLA forces on the coast has already sent alarm bells throughout the world, but China claims everyone should relax, it's just another routine exercise. In order to ease tensions, China has only deployed a third of its available sea lift, but in the last 72 hours, Taiwanese intelligence agents have caught wind of civilian ferries being actively commissioned for military use. China publicly declares that these ships are simply supporting ongoing drills, but on Taiwan, in the capital of Taipei, they're preparing for the worst. 30 minutes before H hour, Beijing releases an official statement condemning Taiwan for separatist provocations. The Chinese Communist Party blames foreign powers for interfering in Chinese domestic affairs and extends exercise zones by hundreds of square miles as response to quote-unquote foreign vessel activities that pose a safety risk to Chinese vessels. A new set of civilian aviation and shipping advisories are issued, forcing hundreds of civilian aircraft and ships to reroute around the extended exercise boxes that are now threatening to engulf and blockade Taiwan. Taiwan is increasingly isolated, but not a single shot has been fired yet. But before we get into that, have you ever wanted to turn game?
You know who else claimed that they were just having military exercises, but there was no malintent behind them? Russia. When they started massing forces on the Ukrainian border and in Belarus on the northern Ukrainian border. These are all military exercises, and then, boop, they're invading full scale. There's no doubt in my mind China has the same type of plan in mind, and unfortunately, I think seeing how much the free world has fumbled supporting Ukraine during their fight against Russia the last 5 years, it has just opened this huge green light for President Xi of China to say, hey, they didn't do shit. Vladimir Putin. They're not going to do anything to us. We're even far further away. So,
Gaming into real money? Well, now you can, and let me show you how. Free Cash is a free platform where users can earn money just by playing mobile games, completing surveys, and finishing other very simple offers. It has a 4.7-star rating on Trustpilot, so it's easy to see why it's become so popular. Free Cash is really straightforward. All you got to do is you pick an offer, launch it, and then just start completing required tasks. Make sure to enable app tracking though before you get started so that your progress is tracked and the rewards are credited to you properly. You can earn while doing everyday things like just watching TV, commuting, traveling, or waiting in a long line. It's too easy, really. Once offers are completed, rewards can be redeemed through options like PayPal or gift cards. So all you gotta do is use my link, signupfreecash.com/CappyArmy, or scan the QR code up there to sign up and start your first offer. If you sign up using my link, you'll get $10 sign up bonus after completing that first offer. The more offers you complete, the more rewards you can unlock, so don't miss your chance to get started. On the island nation, reservists, only recently mobilized, scrambled to arm and equip themselves. Infantry units deployed to staging areas near the west coast, with just over a dozen likely landing areas around the entire island. China's options are limited by subsurface geography, natural barriers, and connectivity to major roads. This works in Taiwan's favor, but the defenders are still facing a modern Thermopylae against a technologically superior foe. Mobile artillery and air defenses deployed to covered positions, hiding inside parking structures, tarp netting, and other pieces of urban and natural camouflage. They know they will be a priority target for China's air and rocket forces, but survivability is baked into their mobile doctrine. China cannot hit what China cannot find and fix. For now though, Taiwan's defenders can only sit and wait, casting a wary eye to the sea. 10 minutes before H hour, China activates the world's largest bot army. A flood of fake social media accounts begin to inundate the internet with false reports. The bots push 3 specific narratives across all major social media platforms. Taiwan's leadership has left the island, they say. Japan has declared itself neutral in a Taiwan conflict, they say. And that the United States is refusing to send forces. The digital blitzkrieg creates a tidal wave of disinformation with the intent of demoralizing and confusing Taiwan's population, but it also shapes a global narrative. Taiwan scrambles to deflect this information warfare attack, but its major media assets are experiencing communication blackouts brought about by a precisely timed campaign of sabotage and digital attack. The end result is a population left in utter confusion, Taiwan's own defenders questioning the real narrative. China's Eastern Theater Command issues a notice that it will be escalating ongoing exercises and that they're going to enact special measures in response to a deteriorating security situation in the Strait. Coast Guard ships begin interdicting foreign and Taiwanese vessels, ordering them to reroute away from the island. Once guarding the perimeter of China's exercise boxes, they are quickly being replaced by an armada of People's Liberation Army Navy warships. Taiwan's screening forces are stuck between a rock and a hard place now. All indications are that an attack is imminent, and yet no shots have even been fired yet. All of this could simply be aggressive posturing by the Chinese Communist Party, trying to provoke Taiwan into shooting first. Each Taiwanese captain knows that history rests firmly on their shoulders, but so do the lives of their crews. Allowing Chinese vessels to move into position unopposed will destroy the slim window that they have to engage and retreat to safety of the eastern coast. In the end, nobody wants to be responsible for triggering World War III, and China's naval vessels deploy completely unopposed. Taiwan's air defense network begins to track large Chinese air packages, converging into discernible vectors of possible attack. Chinese H-6 bombers laden with anti-ship and land strike missiles wheel away from holding patterns over the mainland and toward the sea. A mix of Su-30, Su-35, J-16s, J-11s form into strike packages. Air superiority fighters flying cover for strike fighters loaded with air-to-ground munitions. And somewhere out there, J-20s lurk, ready to form into the tip of the spear, the stealthy fighters greatly reducing the range at which Taiwan's forces can effectively target them. But as Taiwanese radar operators watch in horror, their displays begin to show dropped and duplicated tracks, making it impossible to know which targets are real and which aren't. J-16D electronic warfare aircraft begin jamming Taiwanese radars as they escort strike packages out into the Strait. They are supplemented by Y-9 EW platforms, featuring a powerful dorsal-mounted electronic support measure, direction-finding antenna. The Y-9's powerful radar allows it to serve as both an airborne early warning and control platform, and as a jamming asset when turned to offensive mode. The electronic assault is reinforced by large ground-based radar and communications jamming equipment. GPS over Taiwan begins to significantly degrade, forcing military units to rely on time-tested map and compass techniques. But the communication brownouts are causing disruption across Taiwan's chain of command, an effect that the military is partially insulated from thanks to an American-style culture of small unit initiative. China's military is larger and better equipped than Taiwan, but it's also far more rigid, with a Russian-style top-down command structure and two chains of command that can sometimes contradict each other, one military and the other political. While rare, platoon-level units can sometimes have a political officer assigned to them, though companies will have a political instructor whose responsibility is to ensure proper ideological education and political loyalty to the Chinese Communist Party, even above that of the military itself. During combat operations, the political officer is responsible for overseeing the treatment of civilians and prisoners, and that unit actions align with political objectives, always keeping Chinese Communist Party public image in mind. This opens the door to a disastrous conflict of interest with military objectives. A retreat may be militarily advisable, but be politically unacceptable. Taiwan's intelligence services are well primed to exploit this vulnerability in their own pending disinformation campaign, directly attacking troop morale. On the mainland, People's Liberation Army rocket force batteries receive launch authorization, dropping all pretext of taking part in an exercise. The PLA-RF begins sending volleys of ballistic missiles into the sky. Older DF-11 missiles target fixed Taiwanese sites such as radar stations, airfields, and command and control nodes. DF-15 ballistic missiles target power stations, runways, logistics sites, and transportation infrastructure. Meanwhile, DF-16s are launched from road mobile launchers, armed with both unitary and cluster warheads to destroy troop deployments, military bunkers, and government infrastructure. DF-10 cruise missiles are deployed by China against Taiwan's more well-defended targets. While ballistic missiles are easier to intercept for Taiwan's air defenses thanks to their predictable flight path, the DF-10 offers flexibility by flying low and fast, taking an unpredictable route to its target so as to approach it from different vectors. In minutes, hundreds of missiles are screaming toward targets on the island. It's the largest missile attack in human history. But Taiwan is not defenseless, having spent the last 40 years building a robust layered air defense network. At the heart of Taiwan's air defenses is the AN/FPS-115 Pave Paws, located at Leshan and perched atop a cliff top. The massive radar can track airborne targets across all of East Asia and quickly characterizes incoming threats, relaying data to a dispersed network of fire control radars and air defense batteries. Many of these long-range air search radars are mobile, complicating China's ability to neutralize Taiwan's robust air defense network in one fell swoop. Tracking Chinese DF-10s are 6 E-2 Hawkeyes, looking down from above and allowing them to track the cruise missiles that are attempting to use terrain and radar horizons to mask their approach. Chinese J-20s make these aircraft priority targets, but even with their stealth capabilities and the incredible range of their PL-15 and PL-17 air-to-air missiles, they're having trouble fixing their targets. Taiwanese ROC forces have practiced the art of rapidly cycling through emitting platforms, denying China the ability to easily fix an emitting radar and thus engaging it. To kill these all-important airborne early warning aircraft, China will have to enter into Taiwan's dense air defense envelope and engage via a hardlock, a perilous position for even the J-20. Taiwan sends up waves of interceptors against descending Chinese ballistic missiles, while short-range air defense spread out across the island to provide point defense against critical infrastructure. Some of these batteries, however, fail to engage, their radars and launchers sabotaged by Chinese special forces, which long ago infiltrated the island. At other air defense sites, security forces are engaged in a running battle against elite Chinese operators, both sides knowing that it's a fight to the death. With an invasion force still assembling across the Strait, neither side has anywhere to run. The combat is short and brutal, and accompanied by a wave of attempted and successful assassinations against Taiwan's military and political elite. However, China's Black Ops campaign has run into unexpected resistance. Taiwan's own elite special operators are supplemented by a secret deployment of American special forces. US special forces have long trained Taiwan's defenders in how to identify Chinese infiltration attempts and defend military and political VIPs so as to avoid a decapitation strike. However, what's been ambiguous was America's actual boots on the ground role in case of the invasion. While major ground forces are unlikely to ever join the fight, elite American units have been deployed to Taiwan and across the island chains of the East Pacific. US special operators fight alongside their Taiwanese allies, frustrating China's attempt at a short, sharp invasion preceded by a devastating political decapitation strike. The island nation will not fall in 72 hours as originally hoped. At the Central Military Commission's Joint Operations Command Center in western Beijing, President Xi Jinping meets with his most senior leaders as they monitor the war in real time. China's vice chairman and senior advisor flank Xi Jinping on either side, while Chairman Wang Huning, architect of Taiwan's political narratives, sits opposite him. Secretary of the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection, Li Shi, carefully scrutinizes all gathered. He is primarily responsible for ensuring party loyalty at all levels of the Chinese government, from the senior-most chiefs to the lowest aide. Notably missing is former CMC vice chairman and China's most senior military officer, Zhang Youxi. Purged in January of 2026, Youxi is the most senior Chinese figure to ever face the wrath of President Xi Jinping's political purges. In his wake, the Chinese Communist Party has struggled to replace his expertise, and it's showing as the upper links in China's military chain of command become strained under the weight of combat stress. Also missing is Xi's war cabinet in former Eastern Theater Command, the vice chairman, He Wangdo. Wangdo was the architect behind live fire drills performed during Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan in 2022 and was a key planner for the inevitable invasion of Taiwan. This, however, did not save him from one of President Xi's purges, Removed from his post and the Chinese Communist Party entirely, his replacement Jiang Shanmin comes from the People's Liberation Army Rocket Force and lacks the in-depth expertise and knowledge of Weidong's amphibious operations. The understaffed senior war cabinet now weighs a hefty decision. The plan has been a swift decapitation strike against Taiwan's military and government leadership, with the destruction of most of Taiwan's air defenses to allow unimpeded access to the PLA's strike platforms. This would allow for a smaller than planned invasion force to quickly cross the strait. A full mobilization would have completely tipped Beijing's hand, and the moment and preparation of over 100,000 soldiers taking months to coordinate and impossible to deny under cover of an exercise. However, the decapitation strikes have largely failed. Taiwan's air defenses have been attrited but remain significant. Airborne strike packages remain in holding patterns, awaiting the final order from Beijing. Xi's options are limited, and rather than offer their honest advice, senior advisors, wary of recent purges, wait to speak until divining the direction Xi himself is already considering. It's not good advice, but it's the advice that Xi wants to hear, and that's a better option for any man in this meeting who wants to keep their life or job today. Backing out now is politically unacceptable. The Chinese Communist Party's legitimacy rests heavily on resolving the Taiwan issue. Canceling the operation now wouldn't just mean admitting defeat, it would mean explaining to the mothers of hundreds of sailors and pilots already killed in action that their sons died for nothing. This might incite protests at a time that the CCP is at its weakest politically, but the death blow may come from admitting defeat at the hands of the United States and its Pacific allies, utterly destroying President Xi's legitimacy and that of the party by extension. There is no other option but escalation at this point. The invasion can be postponed as additional troops and transport ships are mustered into action, a process that will take weeks. But in the meantime, China must act to contain US involvement, the only force in the Pacific that can stop Xi's plans. A formal state of war has yet to be declared between the two great powers, and Xi knows he has to act quickly to exploit China's momentum and missile advantage. The situation in the Pacific between the United States and China heavily favors the first power to engage in counterforce strikes, and China cannot allow the US to strike first. On Xi's order, launch and strike authorizations are sent to select units of the PLA rocket force. DF-26 and DF-27 missiles lift off from eastern China, rocketing into space. Both missiles travel over 4,000 kilometers, making them ideal for striking the all-important US military facilities in Guam. The newer DF-27 missiles feature hypersonic glide vehicles, which complicate missile defense by maneuvering during their terminal trajectory. Normally reserved to destroy American carriers, the US has wisely kept its carrier strike groups out of targeting range for now. This makes disabling the facilities at Guam critical to keeping US air power out of the fight. Simultaneously, DF-16 missiles launch on trajectories across US targets on Okinawa and Japan. They also target airfields and support facilities on the Philippines, which has recently allowed a large expansion of American access specifically.
Look at the size difference right here between China and Taiwan. Not that size always matters. At least that's what they say. But because look at Russia and Ukraine, right? But man, in this case, it's not just a bunch of empty land. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of resources. It's a massive population.
To complicate Chinese targeting. DF-17 missiles deliver hypersonic payloads to heavily defended airfields inside of Japan's main island itself, while 4 flights of H-6 bombers unload volleys of CG-20 standoff cruise missiles from within the safety of China's air defense umbrella. The United States has been preparing for just such an attack, with the Air Force adopting the Agile Combat Employment or ACE doctrine, dispersing aircraft, long-range missile batteries, and other assets across a wide area that complicates China's targeting, but it also complicates American logistics. In the Philippines, China's primary target, US combat and support aircraft, are dispersed across roughly just over a dozen sites, including austere airfields that will slow combat operations significantly. However, in Japan, political pushback has complicated the US ability to widely disperse aircraft. Local politicians have no wish to see their local airfields turned into magnet for Chinese ballistic and cruise missiles. Despite a heroic effort by naval and shore-based air defenses, hundreds of American and Allied aircraft are either destroyed or damaged in the blistering Pacific-wide missile attack. However, the US is not caught completely flat footed. Chinese strategic bombers on their way to deliver a follow up blow to Guam are intercepted by American combat air patrols. F 35s take point, using their powerful onboard sensors and data link to seek out Chinese targets, safely.
Dude, I would kill to see some new generation dogfight, new generation fighter jets dogfighting. Oh,
Out of range of any potential threats, Navy F-18s fly in the role of missile trucks. Today, they're equipped with AIM-174B, the air-to-air adaptation of the SM-6 surface-to-air missile. With a surface launch publicly acknowledged range of around 460 kilometers when fired by high and fast-flying F-18s, the missile's range is significantly extended. However, its primary design to strike deep into Chinese air operations, eliminating critical mission support aircraft such as China's radar system platforms, rather than more nimble fighters and strike aircraft. Today, the AIM-174 gunslinger is fulfilling the Phoenix missile's Cold War fantasy of swatting enemy strategic bombers. The Chinese H-6 are taken by surprise, targeted without realizing it, and with missiles fired well outside their detection range. One by one, the big bombers are blown out of the sky. China had known it was a risky mission even with the United States on the back foot and with the element of surprise. But the payoff of a Guam knocked out of the fight for at least half a year had been judged worth it. Now China will have to dedicate more of their rocket force's dwindling ballistic missile stockpile to follow-up attacks, limiting their ability to continue keeping the US Navy out of the Eastern Pacific in the coming weeks. The strategic situation in the Pacific has quickly become a sprint for both powers. Taiwanese decapitation having failed, China must now race to muster a significant invasion force, while systematically attriting Taiwan's air defense and artillery. The Chinese Navy must hurry to establish a quarantine of the island and prevent resupply by the United States of all important interceptors and other weapon systems. The US, meanwhile, must reinforce Pacific air and naval forces from other global commands, racing to neutralize Chinese air and naval power before the Chinese Communist Party can strangle Taiwan into submission. This isn't just a fight for Taiwanese independence at that point, and the survival of the breakaway Chinese democracy. For both sides, it's an existential conflict. China, the rising power, must break First Island chain containment if it's to ever be a true superpower, and the United States must not allow China to seize Taiwan and exercise irresistible influence over the global economy through control of critical sea lanes and the bulk of the planet's microchip manufacturing. With an agenda to spread its authoritarian model around the world and undermine the liberal democratic world order, the small island nation of Taiwan will end up deciding the entire course of the 21st century and beyond. All of this is to be carried.
Great video, man. Cappy always puts together really good videos like this, and we kind of get the full scoop. And he did mention at the end there about the microchips, like we were talking about at the beginning. In my opinion, man, and this is my humble opinion, okay, I think China could most likely steamroll Taiwan in 72 hours. They're so close to Taiwan. They have so much, an unfathomable amount of resources and manpower. I think one of the big things that Taiwan, not really Taiwan, but allied countries, specifically the US, has on China is the fact that China doesn't have a ton of modern military to modern military battle experience. They don't have much experience in that field, but you get experience pretty quick when you're in the heat of it, right? And so I do think they could learn it. I don't think China could hold a match to the United States military. I don't. But I do think if China did it right, they could swoop in and take Taiwan, at least quarantine it like they said, and get boots on the ground in Taiwan before the US could even fire a missile over there. So to me, again, I said this at the very beginning, but this is one of the most influential, one of the biggest, one of the scariest issues facing the world, I think. And I think we'll see a lot more come to light come 2027. I don't know, man. China's a beast. Unfortunately, they're scary, and if you think that China has not been watching and taking notes about Russia's failed attempt to take Ukraine, you'd be utterly mistaken. China is taking so much, is focusing so much on this war in Ukraine to not make similar mistakes with their invasion of Taiwan. It's and they intelligently let Russia go first, right? Say, okay, go Russia, you go take Ukraine, and then they're in the back like taking notes, like, okay, they messed that up, they messed that up, they messed that up. Um, and also another part of this that I think isn't widely discussed or known is the fact that we have seen in the past few months how much the United States government can be manipulated based on global economic pressure. When gas prices started going up in this because of the Strait of Hormuz, the United States was willing to give Iran damn near anything. They were like, "All right, we'll leave. We'll leave the blockade. We'll give you 300 bill," even though that money wasn't coming from the U.S. They were willing to make a lot of concessions because of this global economic pressure. Imagine, imagine the pressure that would come from all of a sudden everything the United States gets from China stops. Dude, talk about a massive talk about massive inflation. That would be huge. So if the US was able to be manipulated by gas prices going up $20 up per barrel, imagine what they would do when a lot of things start going up and people really, Americans specifically and Europeans, pretty much every country would start to feel inflation because of how much China supplies globally. So again, this is a scary one, man, and it's something we're going to be keeping our eyes on a lot more in the near future. Anyways, please go check out Cappy's channel, like, share, subscribe on this channel. I love you guys. We'll see you in the next video.